Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? And you rejoin me outside LKAB Minerals, which is where I left off in the last episode you saw in the East Riding. This sits right on the boundary of not just one or two parishes, it sits on the boundary of four, would you believe, those being Wotton, Bainton, Lund, and the one that it does fall in, Beswick. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Our trip around Beswick will take in two villages, the much larger Kilnwick and the smaller Beswick, but we begin here to the west of Kilnwick at LKAB Minerals. LKAB are one of the world's leading producers of highly upgraded iron ore products, providing millions of tonnes annually to a worldwide market, not something you usually expect to see on the Yorkshire Wolds. This is more like it. Here we are in Kilnwick and our first stop is at the cemetery. Kilnwick is situated approximately 5 miles south of Driffield and 7 miles north of Beverley. As the larger of the two within Beswick, it does have a little more to talk about. Initially, I thought this church here was redundant given how overgrown some parts of the churchyard seemed. How wrong I was. This is a lovely church with a nave built of Jurassic limestone. The diminutive tower is made of brick, making it unusual in character, although Kilnwick does have a brick-related past. Here's the roll of honour. The church is otherwise simple. There's no transept and there are no lady chapels. It's of mixed period construction, the oldest part being the Norman arch at the north door. I've got to be honest, I wasn't expecting this one to be open because when I was coming from the other side it looked like a very overgrown churchyard. I thought it was maybe a redundant church, but it's clearly not. It's clearly still used. I wonder what the one in Beswick is like. Once out of the church, we're invited, thanks to these signs, to take a walk to the park, and I duly obliged. The park in question is called Kilnwick Park, which opened very recently, 5 years ago in 2017. It totals 6.5 acres, and the layout includes a central 3-acre mown grassed area for ball games, a community orchard, and over an acre of new native woodland and new hedges. There's also a parish notice board in here, the only one I found within Kilnwick. The park also has some educational resources, including nature trails and information boards. Let's not forget the play area too, which has got wooden play equipment like slides and swings and climbing frames, as well as natural play elements like willow domes and grassed mounds. There's a lot here. As for the village itself, it's a pleasant place by all accounts. Kilnwick is sometimes called Kilnwick on the Wolds, in much the same way as Middleton is called Middleton on the Wolds. There's a walled garden located south of the church which must have served Kilnwick Hall, one of the village's grandest properties, demolished in 1952, which had ties to the Grimstons. Now, do you remember the telephone box in Foggerthorpe a long time ago, and it had loads of things on the side of it? It was called the A to Z of Foggerthorpe. Well, here there's something very similar for Kilnwick. I've cut in here over my own rambling because what I initially thought this wasn't. What this effectively shows us is a list of people who have been associated with the village through time. 1250, William Thunier, or Thunier. 1520, John Normanville. 1743, John Leppington. 1820, Charles Grimston. 1956, Claire Ellen. 2018, Molly Rose Prince. And on the other side, we've got some other names which it's been known by. There you go. It's good finding things like that. Bricks form the majority of the building material used in Kilnwick's cottages and farmhouses. Much of them were constructed before the 20th century, with other buildings added later. Kilnwick used to have a brick kiln in the village. In 1820, records show that 68,000 bricks were made here. The old clay workings can still be seen, or at least felt, if you know where to go. A walk northwards along the Minster Way, which makes another appearance here, takes you through the floodplain of Kilnwick Beck. On the northern side is the unnaturally uneven ground. This readily available local source of bricks is a likely explanation for the size and extent of the walled garden at Kilnwick Hall, and why the church tower is built of brick rather than limestone. Industry in Kilnwick these days is generally more to do with farming, with all the brickmaking now gone. I would imagine it's much less busy here now, although traffic for LKAB may still pass through. So you can carry on down here and the road will turn to the right and it will lead you to the same place that I'm about to walk right now, and that's down School Lane back to the main road through Kilnwick. And yeah, it's a nice village this so far. The sun's really warm at the moment, so yeah, I'm starting to sweat. I may have to go down to my shorts and t-shirt, I think. Now we pass Kilnwick Village Hall. This, as the street name suggests, was originally the schoolroom. It's owned by the Church of England and managed by the Kilnwick Village Hall Association. The landscape of Kilnwick owes much to its history as an estate, having been described at the time of its sale in 1951 as one of the finest shoots in Yorkshire. Because of its history, the area around Kilnwick is exceptionally well endowed with woodland, which stems from the use of coverts for rearing game birds. Within a mile of the village are 6 plantations. The woodlands also provide it with a little bit more camouflage, if you will. Given its low-lying position and its diminutive church tower, Kilnwick is not easy to spot until you're in it, really. That means it's able to lead a fairly peaceful, out-of-the-way existence, but as a community it gets by just fine. The locals even have a small pub, in inverted commas, the Kilnwick Arms, which opens one night a month. So that's Kilnwick, and now we need to go to Beswick, which is the village which gives this parish its name. So now we come to Beswick, the village which this parish takes its name from. Beswick is much smaller than Kilnwick and it's technically a linear village, but I've turned this into a circular route. The village is situated just off the A164 road on a side road that runs parallel to it, and it's more of the same as in Kilnwick in terms of property at this northern end. P.H. Sissons Sons, famous for wheelwriting and building Wolds Wagons since 1854, were based in Beswick. One of the wagons is at Skidby Windmill. That's a place we've yet to cover. It's got a few landmarks here and there. One of the things I spotted as I walked down Main Street was this village pump. This is a common theme amongst Wolds villages, and so I expect to see some more of these yet. The old red phone box doesn't have anything quite as fancy as Kilnwick does, but it's important nonetheless. This houses a defibrillator. I think Kilnwick's was at the village hall. Neither Beswick nor Kilnwick have a shop or a post office, although Kilnwick used to have the latter, at least until around 1995. Hotham Cranswick provides the parish's nearest retail facilities. There's definitely an estate village feel to this one, isn't there? The houses look all sort of uniform and as if they belong to some kind of estate. I don't know about that yet. Anyway, parish notice board. Here it is. And one of these is going on it. My assertion about this being an estate village was absolutely spot on, and that's because I found this nugget of information when I researched St Margaret's Church. Beswick Village was purchased by the Hotham family in 1838. This church was built on the site of an old thatched chapel in 1871 by Lord Beaumont Hotham. That's really the only thing I could find about this church, but it did remind me a little of the chapel at Steatley. That's the one in Whitwell in Derbyshire for those who haven't seen the Bolsover series. From the churchyard you can see Beswick Hall, which is a late Elizabethan manor house. It was built in the 1600s for local landowner William Daniel. It was remodelled in 1730 and again in 1835. No longer just one contiguous property, after the 1835 reimagining, it was converted into 2 farmhouses. William Draper, a famous Yorkshire fox hunting squire, once lived in it. Since 2011, the Beechall family have lived in its southern part after moving from Rawcliffe, near Goole. The attached farm runs to 500 acres. So behind me is the Primitive Methodist Chapel, or what used to be the Primitive Methodist Chapel. It's now a house. Date stone says 1888. I feel I should mention a bit about Beswick's name, and any settlement around here ending in Wick. Wick normally means marsh, but in this case it's believed to be Anglo-Saxon for village. This side road links us to the A164 and we pass a pumping station. Keep water in mind for the end of this video because we're about to mention quite a lot of the different water courses in this area. Now this is where I turned Beswick into a circular walk by walking up the A164. This is not recommended, however you will need a short way at least to access the 121's bus stop. Otherwise this is a stretch of the A164 with no footpath and just a grass verge to walk on. This is one of the reasons I wear a high-vis vest. I never know where I'm going to end up. Okay, I'm all the way around Beswick. I didn't know that the A164 had no footpath there, so I've had to walk all the way up the grass verge. Not recommended, please don't try that at home. Right, now it's time to go out towards the River Hull to finish this one off, because there's a little small area out there which I need to catch because it's handy. It will take me towards the first part of my next parish. Let's go out there and find it. Now we're going to Wilfholme, which is a small hamlet at the end of a dead-end road off the A164 towards the River Hull. On the way we're going to pass the one and only school in the parish. Kilnwick of course has the old schoolhouse in the form of the current village hall, but primary school children now attend Beswick and Watton School, located at the Wilfholme Road junction. There's also another property over the road, 2 large white houses which I thought may have been a pub at one time. I'm probably miles off with that guess, but this is a major road after all. One thing I do know is we have to cross the railway line. This is the same railway line that runs through Hotham Cranswick and over the road between Watton and Tophill Low Nature Reserve. Wilfholme itself is a small hamlet which is less than a mile away from Wilfholme Landing. Wilfholme has one rather large claim to fame. That would be a 9-year-old dressage horse named Faldo. After training for 9 months at Wilfholme, it was bought in 2010 by the production company for Steven Spielberg's film War Horse, where it went on to fulfill the role of Top Thorn. Okay, we're at the end of the road here at Wilfholme. Time for a picture bit before I finish this one off. Here that comes right now. So at the very end of the road is Wilfholme Landing, located on the River Hull, which is still tidal at this point despite being quite a long way inland from the River Humber. It should be noted that this part of the River Hull is also considered to be the Driffield navigation, although technically the navigation starts at the point where the LKAB used to join the river. Its main features are boat moorings, a farm and a pumping station. It's also a popular spot for fishing. There's a lot of waterways which converge on this area, and this took some understanding. As well as the Hull, LKAB and the course of the Driffield navigation, there's also Watton Beck and the very important Beverley and Barmston drain here, which runs underneath Watton Beck. The pumping station here pumps water into the River Hull from the Beverley and Barmston drain, and the tunnel under Watton Beck was one of 11 similar structures along its length. From here you can see the church at South Dalton with its ridiculously tall spire, and if you look skywards here you're likely to see a plane or two because Beverley Airfield is over the river. And there you have it, that is the parish of Beswick. It's a very long, elongated strip of land, isn't it, from east to west, starting at the mineral works and ending here at the River Hull. And there's only a short section of its boundary that runs along the river here. The river actually forms the boundary, the eastern boundary for Watton as well, and for Hotham, Cranswick as well as that. So there you go, it's quite the landmark is the Hull, but obviously we haven't seen it until now. I haven't been able to get to it. But there it is, there's the River Hull. And you wouldn't think that this stretch of water is the same stretch that splits the city of Hull in half, but it is. And there you go. Time for me to move on to my next one here in the East Riding of Yorkshire. This has been the parish of Beswick, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.